We interrupt this program for a breaking news alert from the local station.
A local protest on East Bay Street that initially started off peaceful has now turned violent. News4JAX reporter Marilyn Parker is live down in that area. Marilyn, please tell us what you see so far.
Well, right now we're seeing tons of officers from JSO. They're covering this area, and right now we're on East Forsyth. We've been hearing lots of those gas pops and different fire rockets have been going off.
We're going to go back to Marilyn Parker for just a moment. We're seeing smoke. Marilyn, if you can hear us right now, we see some smoke in the background, and it looked like there was a little bit of commotion for a moment there. Tell us what's happening.
Right, so we saw another one of those gas explosions, and we just had another pop, another gas. Wait, we're gonna back up. We're gonna back up.
And so right now you can see that Marilyn Parker, also another one of our photographers, Sierra Erie, and also the photographer with the camera, they are all actually moving as quickly as they can east.
More gas.
This is on Forsyth, and there's more gas, they say, that's being thrown. You can see it from Sky 4. You can see that light white smoke in the air. And there's another one you can see on Sky 4 right now on the left side of the screen. Not sure who's throwing these out there.
I stepped outside of my house, oblivious to what was going on the streets. And I stepped out to walk my dog, Sully, and my eyes burn, my throat burns. There was a lot of commotion, hundreds of people in the streets screaming. We heard several blasts, people running. The commotion appears to be moving a little west, again, from where Marilyn is standing. We are at the corner of Forsyth and Main, a very heavy police presence. People are very emotional. The energy is very charged. I'm hearing from officers that I'm speaking to that an officer has been injured. We are, of course, trying to confirm that. But being in downtown Jacksonville right now feels as if you're in the middle of a war zone.
Now, we also do see that JSO is moving quickly down the street. Our cameras here, but they are being moved. You can see JSO officers actually some of them do have on their gas masks. It appears that there are two other streams of what is probably tear gas as well that we just saw on the street as our photographer is panning to the left side. If you look on the right side now on Sky 4, you also see that JFRD is also at the scene. This is in the downtown area.
We were over here by the supervisor of elections because as people started to scatter, my photographer, even we had to splash some milk on his eyes because he got a little bit of that tear gas in his eyes. And so as we started to scatter, we saw a group here who actually threw a rock through the supervisor of elections building. So things are escalating out here.
You see a large number of police officers on your left with a clear line and a number of protesters on the other side of the street. And as you see, everyone there has their cell phone up, and you heard Kelly Wiley talking about, people agitating. When you take a look at this video, you see a guy closest to the police officers wearing a sweatshirt just right in front of the police officers. And the police officers responding calmly and trying their best to get this situation under control. Again, this was moments ago.
Well, it's not difficult for them because they prepared for this. They saw the events happening all over the world, and they knew that there would be protests here. They would hope that it would have been peaceful protests continuously, but the peaceful protest turned into a violent protest, so they were prepared for it. Whenever you have the civil unrest unit to come out, which is the field force, which I had the honor of serving on at one point with my tenure at JSO, they're prepared. They practice for these things, they prepare, they strategize, they do all their due diligence leading up to an event such as this.
Maggie, what have you learned so far regarding the sheriff and the mayor?
Well, we're on Liberty Street right now, the intersection with East Beaver, and we've been told, yes, that there's going to be a media briefing with the sheriff and the mayor, but we have not heard what time. So they have all of the media standing in one place waiting for that to happen. You can see behind me there are dozens of patrol cruisers and sheriff's officers behind us on Liberty Street. So we are blocks away from any of those downtown crowds, and the officers here, they can't tell us much, but I've been asked to wait here for Sheriff Williams to arrive.
That's the line of resistance that you see these officers standing there. What they do is they form a line and they prevent anyone from passing them, and that's how they initially control the crowd. And if they have to use non-lethal, if the crowd is not adhering to their demands, then they'll use the non-lethal and continue to walk backwards, moving the crowd away.
Ken, as we're looking at some video from the Berkman Plaza in downtown, where you see some officers with some pretty long guns and police officers moving in there, right next to the hotel, right on the riverfront, where the old courthouse used to be, a very large police force. Ken, from what you're seeing here, this was taken moments ago. Looks like there are quite a few police officers there, and as you said, they're working. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you see with your naked eye a large number of officers, but there's also officers that you do not see that's working as well. You know, their objective is to make sure the community and these people are safe, to deter the violent behavior that they've seen earlier with some of them, to disperse the crowd.
All right, let's listen.
What's happened this afternoon? So about 3 o'clock today, we had a probably close to about 1,200 people show up for a protest, a peaceful protest. That protest lasted about an hour, maybe a little longer than an hour. We had really good cooperation from the organizers, really good cooperation from the group, and then that protest began to break down. Around 6:30, roughly 200 people that had hung around since the initial protest began to confront police officers. They began to throw rocks. They attacked several police officers. They vandalized several police cars, attempting to light them on fire, breaking windows. I don't have a direct count as of yet, but a lot of direct action against the first responders that were out there protecting that peaceful protest from earlier today.
It started with 1,200 people, families. I watched it. There were some kids out there making their voices heard respectfully, and then they left, and the folks that are left are, it's not about peaceful protest, it's not about reform, it's not about change, it's about violence. Police officers have been attacked, and we're just not going to tolerate in our city. We're not going to let them burn our city to the ground.
So this is what we're seeing right now. Again, North Market Street, East 4th Side Street, big police presence down further near the water. It looks like they're just kind of, maybe that's where they're huddled, they're gathering, keeping an eye on things, but as soon as we learn more, we'll let you know.
You can see some of the officers are moving back over. They're heading back towards North Market, but still a very, very large police presence. So many cop cars going up and down Market right now. They're still out here trying to monitor everything.
Yeah, and as we look at the video to the right side of the screen, Ken, almost at the height of a lot of the violence and a lot of the tension. We've seen people falling to the ground, really shaky video. You see the tear gas that was deployed to control the crowd, because at one point the crowd had or appeared to have control with protesters and rioters standing on the top of police cars, attacking police officers, breaking windows, trying to set cars on fire. And again, one officer slashed or stabbed in the neck. So this video is at the height of it. Then you see a couple running, down the street. We also heard from Zach Lajway, who lives in this area. Some people, walked outside to walk their dog, who lived downtown, and just didn't realize that this protest had changed so fast. We heard from Marilyn Parker, who said that right around 6:30, everything changed, just the whole mood. We saw people, it was very intense. There was a lot of animosity. As you see there, a picture of a police officer's car with something likely a piece of wood that was brought in and set on fire. We've seen that across the country in many other cities who are experiencing the same thing.
But when you start throwing rocks at the police, setting police cars on fire, expect the consequences for that.
And we're looking at the consequences right in front of the Florida Theater. That video appeared to show someone on the ground being arrested. You heard the sheriff saying that a lot of people were arrested. We just saw one of the members of the police department, not sure if they were SWAT team members though, using tear gas or—
That was field force.
Or that was the field force team using pepper spray. And Ken, what can you see right there? Walk us through what you're seeing right now.
Well, I see the officers setting up a line of resistance there. You got a mixture of officers there. You got some field force officers there and look like some SWAT team members as well. And they train for this. They're prepared for this sort of thing. You know, when a person begins to advance, when people begin to advance, when they're commanded to stay back, they're going to be pepper sprayed. That's a non-lethal way of pushing people back. And if they get too close, they could be arrested. But the objective is to control the crowd, keep violence down, and then disperse that crowd.
We want to be clear. We do not condone violence, and we are very concerned about the welfare of everyone who lives here, Denise. And Tarek, we want to be clear that we intend on continuing to push for positive change, and we look forward to having honest dialogue about these serious issues with the mayor, the city attorney, and the sheriff. We want to remain solution-oriented. It's time for Jacksonville to sit down and have an honest conversation about racial issues.
This photo, which is very striking, if you take a moment to look at that photo, first of all, you see like the tail light is out. At least two individuals are standing on top of the JSO vehicle, surrounded by people. This is in that same area where we saw the tear gas that was being deployed by JSO to help disperse that group. So you see the Florida Theater, the sign for the Florida Theater right behind them. So this is in that same area when you had this group of about 200 people who decided to throw rocks and vandalize and try to set cars on fire. As the sun set, going further into the evening, we saw tactical vehicles from JSO. We saw JSO officers that were sitting in some of the ATV vehicles patrolling. This is Hogan Street near Lower Street as well, downtown. But you saw them as they were strategically attempting to get this group of disruptors to disperse. And yeah, we're very familiar with these areas because a lot of what is happening in this area. A lot of city buildings down here. This is another one again, right in front of the historic Florida Theater. This is probably viewer video where you can see people standing around, some attempting to antagonize the officers. You see JSO, some of them with their faces covered. They have their gas mask on. And you see they're attempting to get this group of people to disperse and go down the street. And this was right before that peak where we saw, and you see there, where some of the tear gas is being deployed. And we heard a couple of different times, a couple of pops. Marilyn Parker had talked about that as well, where tear gas was being deployed, and it effectively made this group disperse east and west. And now tonight, East Bay Street is a lot more calm.
Just joining us live and getting ready for the 10 o'clock news. We're looking at pictures that continue to come into our newsroom of several instances of unrest, of violence, of anger, of tension. You see a young man being body slammed there. As Ken Jefferson said, you saw that happen, but you didn't see what happened before that. We're seeing a lot of these images. News4Jax at 10 o'clock starts right now.
The 10 o'clock news starts right now with a breaking news alert.
Unrest is spreading from all areas of the country, including here in Duval County. This is new video a viewer sent us of what happened in downtown Jacksonville earlier this afternoon. Mayor Lenny Curry says that about 1,200 people expressed their anger and frustration peacefully for the death of George Floyd.
And we want to take a live look now at the St. John's Town Center, where police say they're bracing for a possible another burst of violence. We've seen social media posts that indicate that there might be even more protests. We have crews in the area right now. We are going to check in with those crews in just a moment.
A JSO officer is in the hospital after getting slashed in the throat by a protester. This day of violence has been sparked by the death of George Floyd.
We want justice! We want justice!
I'm not sure, there's a bit of a scuffle. There's a pop. There's another one. We got more officers moving down.
That's video from our own Marilyn Parker, who shot that earlier from inside their vehicle for their own safety and protection. But take a look at this. Times Square, Austin, Texas, Kansas City. These are just some of the many places across the America that are expressing their outrage over the death of Floyd.
The image has gone viral, showing a Minnesota police officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck.
News4JAX crews have been all over the city, from right in the middle downtown, where everything has been happening, to get all the coverage for you.
But first, we're going to toss it over to Marilyn Parker. Marilyn, you have been in the thick of things since the 6 o'clock news. What are things like now?
I can say this is the most quiet downtown Jacksonville has pretty much been all day. I'm at the intersection of Forsyth and North Newnan, and what I can say is we haven't seen much damage, but there's still a lot of things in the street that you can see left from that protest. And this is an area where it did get pretty violent. We saw someone being forced down to the ground, lots of tear gas, and several different things happening, and we were forced to be pushed back along going back down towards where Bay Street is and over on North Market. We had to be pushed back far as police were trying to disperse the crowds. Not too long ago, I spoke with a man who lives in downtown, and he was telling me, watching the coverage from across the world, this is something that he's expected to happen, though he didn't want it to. He noticed how the protests earlier today were much more calmer, and then he says things grew in a bad way. Listen to what he had to say about today's events.
So today was a great day. Peaceful marches starting at 3 o'clock. It was very uneventful. I think people said what they needed to say, which was great. And I think the voices of people were heard. However, after that, I think there is an element of people that I don't believe lived in Jacksonville. So my belief is I think there were people from outside Jacksonville that came and stirred up a lot of this nonsense, which resulted in the pandemic or the issue that we have at hand.
And that's something we've been hearing from many of the folks who we've been talking with, including crime and safety expert Ken Jefferson. And that gentleman, he was actually out and about checking on a business that he normally goes to. He wanted to make sure there was no structural damage, and we haven't seen as much. I can tell you further down on Forsyth, there's a bit of graffiti on the walls referring to the police that you can come and see for yourself. We won't air that, but not a lot of structural damage that we've seen so far. We're live in downtown Jacksonville. Marilyn Parker, Channel 4, the local station.
And News4JAX reporter Kelly Wiley was also near the chaos that happened earlier downtown. Kelly, the elections office doors damaged, windows shattered.
Yeah, we were here when that happened. It was right after police attempted to break up a large group of people. They threw some tear gas and people started to scatter. And we were running towards this way, towards the supervisor elections. We saw other people doing that too. And that's when we saw this happen. Right now, they're trying to patch it up, board it up for the night. But you can see the glass was completely shattered. I'm not quite sure what they threw in there. But tensions were high when this happened. This was right after a large gathering of people on North Newnan and Forsyth. You can hear us saying "stay back" because it was right as they were starting to throw tear gas. It was right as police were starting to slowly inch forward to get people to move from that area. But people there did not want to move. These were some of the folks that were there. We talked to them. They were people that were here earlier at the peaceful protest and stayed behind as things started to escalate. this was really a push and pull between police and these demonstrators. And as we were there, we saw a girl get thrown to the ground by a police officer, and then we saw her kind of taken behind the line of police officers. We're not sure what happened after that. But we saw another young gentleman be thrown to the ground. This was a really tense night. And from there, what you saw was police trying to push people back. First starting to walk and then throwing tear gas, and then people scatter, and then they would gather again. Now, maybe 30 minutes ago, we really started to see things clear out. I think partly because we started to see more police in different spots starting to kind of close in, but also the weather changed, and I think people started to go home because of that as well. But this was a really heavy night. We saw this building, we saw someone threw a rock into it or whatever object. We also saw maybe a few blocks down another, it looked like abandoned building that someone threw something into. A lot of people very emotional, not just over what's happened in recent days and weeks with Ahmaud Arbery, with George Floyd, not just with that, but with, in their view, things that are happening here with JSO that they don't approve of. We heard a lot of people say that they want to see body camera video be released in some of these officer-involved shootings. It's just a very complex night. There were people here that weren't participating in things like this. There were people that had trickled and stayed after some of these peaceful protests, but there were some people who were doing things like this and throwing things into buildings and throwing things across the line where police officers were. There was a lot going on.
Appreciate that report from downtown Jacksonville at the Supervisor of Elections office, which is being boarded up right now. We do want to check in now with News4Jax reporter Maggie Lorenz, who's near the St. John's Town Center. So, Maggie, police are bracing for another round of violence. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so we just drove through the town center, and it kind of just looks like a normal Saturday night. There are still people eating inside of the restaurants. Before the rain came in, they were eating outdoors. We're not seeing any signs of any unrest here. We have seen police cars driving throughout, and I was at this evening's briefing where Mayor Curry and Sheriff Williams gave an update on the town center. I specifically asked the sheriff what kind of presence they're going to have here tonight. Here's what he told us.
We're also continuing to follow a lot of social media activity about other potential hotspots in the city. Most of those have not come to fruition, although we are responding and preparing for that.
We're just not going to tolerate in our city. We're not going to let them burn our city to the ground.
We're off Gate Parkway next to the Wawa. We're in the closed Bono's parking lot right now. We're having to stay off town center property because we are in our very large marked news van, and it has been established many times in the past that security will not let the media onto the town center property. So we're having to monitor from a safe distance. And I do want to point out that we are doing this live shot inside of our news van only because of the weather right now. We got here and there were some big, powerful lightning bolts popping all around us. So we just wanted to do the report safely from inside of the van. So as soon as that weather kind of clears up, we're going to try to get around the town center to see what's going on here. Send it back to you guys. We're live at the town center. Maggie Lorenz, Channel 4, the local station.
All right, Maggie, thank you. The weather, the rain, likely helping the situation. A lot of people leaving. But one of the places where we didn't see a whole lot of activity was the St. John's Town Center, which is where Jamal St. Cyr is right now. Jamal, anything new out there?
Right now, things are quiet here. We have seen an increased number of JSO cars just driving past us. Just a few minutes ago, there were 3 cars meeting in this parking lot just over here. But outside of that, it seems like a normal Saturday night here. There's still quite a few cars here parked with people eating inside some of the restaurants. But JSO cars have been driving up and down this way throughout the time that we've been here over the past 20 or 30 minutes. There are still a few people lingering around, but for the most part, it seems like a normal night. People are inside the restaurants. People are still inside some of the stores closing up. Nothing out of the ordinary besides an increased presence from JSO officers. I've seen a few security cars come up and down this way, but nothing is blocked up at the moment. There have been quite a few JSO cars. seen over the past 20 minutes. They've been increasing over the time that I've been here. I've been here for about 90 minutes, and just in the past 20 minutes, I've seen 3 or 4 that have been meeting in a parking lot just that way, and then as well driving up and down this way. So they are prepared for something. They have not blocked up anything right now. There's nothing out of the ordinary going on. The rain is coming down a little bit. I have seen a few cars that had people sitting in them just kind of head out when the rain got a little bit heavier. But right now, nothing is going on here at St. John's Town Center, but we will keep you up to date throughout the night. For now, live here at St. John's Town Center, I'm Jamal St. Cyr for Channel 4, the local station.
All right, Jamal, thank you. News4JAX crime and safety expert Ken Jefferson is joining us here in the studio. Ken, you watched this violence unfold with the rest of us today. 1,200 people show up early. Then the next thing you know, when they leave, another 200 stay and start agitating, start violence, start attacking police officers. How does this play into what we're seeing across the rest of the country?
Well, it's a lot of copycat stuff going on. You know, we saw the images in Minneapolis. We saw how they burned down a police substation. That's not going to happen here in Jacksonville. That's never going to happen here in Jacksonville. There may be somebody that's listening right now that want to try to dare that, but GSO is daring them to dare that. So we saw it playing out in Atlanta. We saw it playing out in Minneapolis and all these other cities, and now it's here in our city. And the way our department has responded has been nothing but stellar as it stands right now. They're prepared. And like I said earlier, Tariq, you know, that field force unit, they've not been utilized in God knows when. When I was there for 24 years, but not for the entire 24 years I served on the field force unit, but a portion of my time I did. We were just practicing for civil unrest such as this. And I never had a chance to get out there and be involved with anything like that. But now that practice has come to fruition and it's paying off. It's paying off. So where do we stand right now? Where do we stand right now? Well, GSO is on high alert. They understand that they got to keep their head on a swivel. They understand that there could be ambush calls. They got to be ready for those things. They got to be prepared and ready for riots to erupt even more.
Now, we've talked a lot about the protests. Let's talk a little bit about the problem. And do you think, you know, we heard Ben Frazier saying from the Northside Coalition, he wants body camera released from some of these shootings that have happened in the city of Jacksonville. We've got violence in the city. Is this something that the police department listens to?
Yeah, I believe the sheriff will listen to them. I believe the state attorney will listen to them. I don't know what the legal ramifications as to why that those items have not been released. I don't know, but I will say this: you cannot get justice through violence. This reigns on the efforts of the Northside Coalition, even though they did a stellar job of being peaceful and nonviolent. But you had those ones inside or outside that group that tried to mess it up for them. But I like what he said, that it's not going to stop.
Right, and we also heard the mayor saying that Jacksonville has a history of people protesting peacefully in the city. We haven't seen violence like this.
No, we haven't. Not since I was a kid when we had riots on Florida Avenue and buildings burning down back then. You're too young to remember that, but I remember it. And we hadn't had anything as significant as that since now. So now that we have this, and now that GSO is dealing with it, we need to bring all of our community leaders together. Let's have a conversation. Let's put it all out there. Just don't hold back. Don't hold back. Put it all out there, and let's see if we can get some remedies for some of this stuff.
Right. All right, Ken Jefferson, we certainly appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And News4JAX will continue to monitor the situation all throughout the night and into the morning. We're working around the clock to make sure you are updated and safe as the community tries to work through this unrest together. The 10 o'clock news continues after this short break. Stay with us.